Right now, as you're watching this video, someone just lost their entire retirement. Not because of a market crash or because they overspent, and not because they made bad investments. They lost everything because they skipped one purchase. One thing that they convinced themselves they didn't need. One thing that they thought was too expensive. And here's the part that should terrify you. They did everything else right. They saved diligently for 40 years, had a solid portfolio, followed all the conventional advice, but that one missing piece wiped them out. Sound like clickbait? I've actually lived through this talking to someone on the other side of this very desk who it happened to. And today, I'm going to reveal all four of those key purchases. And I'm going to show you exactly how skipping even one of these can cost you everything you've worked for and why the top 1% always purchase all four of these. And one of these purchases could save you six figures in a single emergency. Another one is literally being mandated by some states through a tax that 90% of Americans have never even heard of. The third one could cut your lifetime tax bill by $200,000 or more. And the fourth, it has potentially the highest return on investment of anything you'll do in retirement. But almost nobody thinks of it as a purchase. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where you're exposed, you'll know what the wealthy do differently, and you'll know how to protect everything that you've built. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this latest edition of the Financial Prof series. Alright, so let's not bury the lead. Remember when I said I'd sat on the other side of this desk and talked to someone whose retirement got lost? Well, let's start with that purchase, that big one. Long-term care insurance. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'm healthy. My parents didn't need care. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Here's the problem. You can't cross that bridge when you come to it, because when you come to it, you're either uninsurable or the premiums are so expensive that they're unaffordable. Let me give you some numbers that should wake you up. According to the latest data, 70% of people turning 65 today will need some form of long-term care in their lifetime. Not might need, will need. And the average duration? About 3 years or so for men, nearly 4 years for women. And if you're wondering where we're getting this info, we're going to put the sources in the description, so keep an eye. Now, here's where it gets expensive. The national median cost for a private room in a nursing home is now over $116,000 per year. Home health aides? Around $75,000 annually for just 8 hours a day. Assisted living facilities average $64K per year. So let's do a little bit of simple math. If you need care for 3 years at $75K per year for home care, that's $225,000 out of your retirement savings. And if your portfolio is generating a 4% safe withdrawal rate, you'd need a nest egg of $5.6 million to cover that expense without depleting your principal. How many retirees have that? Not many. And here's what the top 1% understand that everyone else doesn't. Long-term care insurance isn't about if you'll need care, it's about protecting everything else you've built when that time comes. But there's more to this story, and this is where it gets really interesting. So I actually used to work in another office to this, and this desk is figurative because the woman who sat on the other side of me had just gone through a scenario where they had done everything right, saved over $1 million for retirement, and were sitting pretty. But unfortunately, what happened was the husband had a long-term care event, spent a few years in long-term care, and completely ended up depleting their retirement between hospital and long-term care bills. An insurance policy of some kind would likely have helped mitigate some of that. So this is where this can become incredibly important. And there's another angle still. There are states like Maryland, Colorado, Montana, New York, and several others that actually offer incentives for those who are willing to purchase a private long-term care policy. Why? Because they understand that every person with long-term care insurance is one less person who might end up on Medicaid, which typically costs the state far more. But there's also a flip side, and this is where things do get a little bit controversial. Washington State implemented a mandatory long-term care payroll tax in 2023, called the Washington Cares Fund. If you work in Washington, you now pay 0.58% of your wages with no income cap into this fund. So if you're in 100K, that's $580 per year. Over a 10-year career, that's a $5,800 cost minimum, and likely much more with raises and inflation adjustments. What do you get for that? A lifetime maximum benefit of $36,500 adjusted for inflation, available only if you remain a Washington resident and meet strict care requirements. So think about that. You could pay in for decades, then retire to Arizona or Florida, which many Washington retirees do, and you get nothing. Zero. You've paid a tax with no benefit. So the lesson here? Whether your state is encouraging you with tax credits or forcing you with mandatory taxes, the message seems clear. Long-term care planning, in some form or fashion, is not an option. And for those in states like Washington, the smart play is often to secure private long term care that actually travels with you rather than disappears if you cross state lines. So here's the bottom line. If you're between 50 and 65, get quotes now. The premium difference between buying at 55 versus 65 can be 50 to 100% or more. And if you wait until you have a health condition, you might not qualify at all. The top 1% of retirees bought this insurance in their 50s, and the bottom 99%, they're hoping they won't need it, and then spending down their assets when they do. But long term care insurance is just the first purchase. Number two is something that protects you from a different kind of risk, one that most people don't see coming until it's frankly too late. So, what is that? The second thing that top 1% of retirees always purchase is comprehensive estate planning. And I'm not talking about a simple will that you downloaded online and maybe changed a few words on for 50 bucks. What I'm talking about is an actual true estate plan. And here's what most people don't understand. Estate planning isn't about dying. It's about protecting your family, your assets, and your wishes, both while you're alive and after you've departed. So let me show you why this matters so much, especially in retirement. I had a client whose mother passed away without a trust. She had a simple will, but everything still had to go through probate. The estate was worth, maybe $700,000, nothing crazy. Just a paid off home and some retirement accounts, basically. Probate took 18 months. Legal fees, $25,000. Court costs and executor fees, another $8,000. But here's the worst part. During those 18 months, the family couldn't access the assets. They couldn't sell the house, they couldn't distribute the proceeds, anything. The estate was frozen while the courts processed everything. And this is not an isolated case. I had a friend who had a mother who died, not a client, but same exact situation cropped up again, and he's still going through it over a year later. These are easy cases with no disputes. When there are disputes, I've seen estates tied up for years, half a decade or more, burning through tens of thousands in legal fees, and especially if you're across multiple state lines with real estate, yeah, my goodness, you're going to end up paying, or rather, your beneficiaries will. So, this is where comprehensive estate planning really comes into play. When I say comprehensive, I mean things like revocable living trusts. This is the foundation. Your assets go into the trust, which means they bypass probate entirely. When you pass, your trustee distributes those assets according to your wishes. No court involvement, no delays, no public record. And the cost to set up, probably $5 to maybe $10,000. But by not doing it, you could potentially be spending tens of thousands on probate. Okay, next document you're probably going to want to consider is a power of attorney. This is something no one likes to think about. Say you have a stroke at 68. You survive, but you can't manage your assets. Your spouse has to go to court to get a guardianship over you. And this process can take, months and $10,000 plus. With proper power of attorney documentation, your designated person can act immediately. No court, no delays, and no drama. Okay, another one. Health directives and living wills. This tells your family what you want if you can't communicate. Do you want life support? Under what conditions? And without this, your family's left guessing and often fighting among themselves about what they think you'd have wanted. Here's another key piece. Beneficiary designations review. A mistake I see constantly, someone gets divorced, remarries, but never updates their IRA beneficiaries. They die and hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially go to the wrong person. Another one, see this all the time. Trust documents that aren't updated on the actual IRAs, individual or joint taxable accounts. Basically, they set up the trust, they spend those thousands of dollars, but never retitle anything. That trust can only work to the degree that you let it. But estate planning isn't just about documents. It's about tax efficiency, which we're going to get into more in a minute. But let's just say you have a larger estate, say over $2 to $3 million. Strategies like charitable remainder trusts or gifting strategies, life insurance trusts, can potentially, depending on your state, save your beneficiaries tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even for smaller estates, the income taxes on inherited IRAs now conform to a brand new set of rules thanks to the Secure Act. I had a client with an IRA a little over $1 million. His kids inherited it, and because they are both high earners, they only have 10 years to take it out, which means that they're probably going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes because they're in high earning positions. But with proper planning, a situation like that can potentially be avoided, where Roth conversions or maybe some charitable gifting or even just straight up gifting to those you love most can be really useful to help mitigate that. So, what does comprehensive estate planning cost? Well, first and foremost, I'm not an attorney, and none of this is meant to be legal advice, right? Or tax advice for that matter. but you're looking at probably 3 to 7K for the basic package, plus maybe another $500 to $1,000 to update it every few years as life changes. Is that expensive? It may be. But compare that to 30, 40, $50,000 worth of estate costs, years of delay, and unnecessary taxes. Now, the top 1% don't think twice about this expense. They know that proper estate planning is one of the highest ROI purchases that they will make, not for themselves, but for those they love most. On the average retiree, maybe they have a basic will they wrote 20 years ago, outdated beneficiaries, no plan for incapacity, and their families, their kids, their grandkids, their sisters and brothers, they pay the price. Don't be in that group. All right, now we're about to get to purchases 3 and 4, but before we do, I want to offer you something that could be incredibly valuable for your specific situation. Because, look, everything I'm sharing with you today is valuable general info, but here's the truth. Your retirement situation is unique. Your assets, your goals, your tax situation, your state, they're all different from everyone watching this video, which is why I want to offer you something I don't always do, a personalized retirement plan video that's created specifically for you and your numbers. So here's how it works. You click the link in the description below or the pinned comment, and you're going to find that you have a simple form to fill out. It takes less than 5 minutes. Asks a few basic retirement info goals, your savings, income sources, etc. It's completely confidential and takes, again, less than 5 minutes. I will then record a custom video analyzing your specific situation. I'll show you a few areas where you might be exposed, where you're doing well, and a few specific strategies that might make sense for you. Not some hypothetical retiree, but you. This isn't a sales pitch necessarily. It's more of a free offer to help you see where you stand. No obligation to work together, but if you choose to, we are accepting new clients and we'll be happy to find out more about you. Again, the link is in the description. Fill it out after this video, and I'll get your personalized plan back to you ASAP. All right, let's get back to purchase number 3. And this one surprises people because it's not something you buy once. It's something you have to keep buying year after year after year. But the cost of not buying it can be devastating. Purchase number 3, professional ongoing tax and financial planning. Now, notice I didn't say a financial plan. I said ongoing financial planning, and there's a massive difference. Granted, I know I am a bit biased here, right? Financial planner, it's how I make my bread. But the truth of the matter is this can make a huge difference even for people who have always been DIYers. Most people, if they do any planning at all, they do it once. They pay a few $1,000s, they get a binder full of recommendations and numbers, and then they stick it on a shelf and probably never look at it again. The top 1%, they're meeting with their financial team at minimum once a year and oftentimes quarterly, or whenever life changes. Why? Well, because tax laws change, life changes, markets change, and strategies that made sense 5 years ago might be costing you money today. Let me give you an example of real value here. Let's say I have a hypothetical client named Robert. Might have come to me at age 68, $800,000 or so in his traditional IRA, taking his required minimum distributions as required, paying taxes, thought he was doing everything right. Run the numbers and realize he was going to be in the 24% federal tax bracket for most of his RMDs. But the problem is he didn't need the RMD income. It was just pushing him into higher brackets and increasing his Medicare premiums through IRMA surcharges. IRMA, of course, meaning income-related Medicare adjustment amount. We implement a strategy called Roth conversions in his early retirement years before RMDs kick in at 73, and we can convert $60K per year for 5 years, filling up the 22% brackets. Yes, you'll pay taxes on those conversions, but by the time Robert, our hypothetical retiree, reaches RMD age, he's already got a big post-tax bucket. And the result is, over his retirement lifetime, estimate that you'd save $150,000 to $180,000 in IRMA surcharges, RMD tax, etc. at higher brackets, and that stays in your pocket, or Robert's in this case, rather than the IRS. Now, here's another example. Qualified charitable distributions from IRAs. If you're charitably inclined and over 70 and a half, you can donate up to $105,000 annually directly from your IRAs to charity, satisfying your RMD without increasing your taxes. This can save you thousands and keep you out of higher Medicare premium brackets, potentially. And most people have never heard of QCDs, or qualified charitable distributions. This is why professional planning isn't a luxury, it's a necessity if I do say so myself. The tax code is tens of thousands of pages long, and the difference between knowing the pieces that apply to you can also cost you or save you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, should everyone hire an advisor? No. If you have the time, the interest, and the expertise to stay on top of the tax laws, every Medicare rule update, every withdrawal optimization strategy, you could do it yourself. But the top 1%, even the ones who could do it themselves, they hire professionals because their time is valuable and they don't want to live their retirement in spreadsheets. The going rate for comprehensive financial planning can be anywhere from free, which really isn't free, let's be honest, they're just after the assets under management, most likely, to literally tens of thousands of dollars per year, or the really, like family office situations, hundreds of thousands. But for us, we charge a simple flat fee that ranges from 1.1 to 1.5% depending on complexity and portfolio size. We also have options for people who just want to do hourly consultative work. Again, biased here, but this is where it does help to understand what the cost is we're looking at. All right, so let's get into purchase number 4. You've made it this far. What is this big one? Purchase number 4, the top 1% of retirees invest in, is their health. Literally, their health. Now, this might sound soft compared to the other 3 purchases. It's not a financial product, an insurance policy, or anything like that. But I promise you, this one might have the highest ROI of everything we've talked about today. And here's why. Every year you remain healthy and active in retirement is a year you're not paying for medical care, prescription drugs, mobility aids, or potential long-term care. It's also a year you're actually living the retirement you've spent decades saving for. Let me give you some numbers. A healthy 65-year-old couple will spend an estimated $315,000 on healthcare costs throughout retirement, and that's assuming no major health events. Do you really think you're going to make it to that gravestone with no major health events? But here's the thing. That number can vary wildly based on your health status. Stay healthy and active, you might spend less than 300. Develop chronic conditions from lack of exercise, poor diet, and ignoring preventive care, you might be spending $500,000 or more. So when I say the top 1% of retirees invest in their health, what do I mean? They spend money on things like quality food. Yes, farmers markets are great, organic produce, maybe growing your own food, which can also get you out of doors and get some exercise if you're a gardener. Now, personal trainers and gym memberships are another example. The wealthy don't just try to exercise, they hire professionals. Are you seeing a theme here? They join gyms, take classes, and prioritize movement. The cost is, maybe 3 to 6K per year, but the value, well, avoiding hip replacements might be 40K. Heart surgery could be 100K plus, and the loss of independence avoided? Priceless. Preventive care means getting your annual physicals, of course, seeing specialists when something is off, and not waiting till an emergency. Mental health and stress management can also be part of this. Retirement is supposed to be low stress, but sometimes, even in retirement, the top 1% are going to hire a therapist for this, that, or the other thing just to make sure that they can keep well balanced in that area. Now, I can hear some of you saying, but I can't afford a personal trainer or a therapist or organic food. That's a luxury. I understand. That's a fair point. But here's the counter argument. You're going to spend this money one way or another. Either you spend it now on staying healthy, or you're likely to spend it later on treating a disease. Except the later version costs 5 to 10 times more, and you're probably looking at a far worse outcome. If a $50 per month gym membership is $600 per year. Skip it, develop heart disease, and you're looking at $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 plus in medications, procedures, and lost quality time. The math is not even close. And here's what the wealthiest retirees understand. If you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything. It's the foundation of everything else. All the money in the world doesn't matter if you can't enjoy time with your grandkids, enjoy your hobbies like golfing, or if you're stuck in a hospital bed and can't even take a walk outside to get the fresh air. So that's what I mean when I say the top 1% purchase their health. I mean they literally treat it like the investment it is. They don't make excuses about being too busy or too tired. They give it the intentionality it deserves. Because the ROI on health is the highest ROI you're likely to get in retirement. So let's bring this home. 4 purchases: long-term care insurance, estate planning, professional tax and financial planning, and their health. These aren't luxuries. These aren't things that only the wealthy or the ultra-wealthy can afford. They are strategic decisions that protect what you have built, create certainty in uncertainty, and help give you the freedom to actually live in retirement instead of worrying about it. And here's the thing that connects all 4. They're all about removing risk and buying peace of mind. The top 1% don't have less risk in their lives. They just understand that you can't eliminate risk, but you can transfer it, manage it, and prepare for it. And that's exactly what these 4 purchases aim to do. The average retiree hopes nothing bad happens, but the wealthiest retirees plan for things to go wrong. and then enjoy their lives knowing they're protected. So, as we enter into a new year, here's my challenge for you. Look at these 4 areas. Where are you exposed? Where have you been putting off a decision because it felt expensive or complicated or unnecessary? Because I can almost promise you, the cost of inaction is higher than the cost of any of these purchases. And if you're in a state like Maryland, where we're situated at Norberg Wealth, you might even get tax credits for protecting yourself. And I've worked with enough people in other states to know that, states like Washington actually penalize you. You're paying whether you like it or not to make sure that you have adequate real coverage that works for you. Now, remember that personalized retirement plan video I mentioned earlier? If you haven't clicked that link yet, do it now. This is your chance to get a custom analysis of your specific situation, your numbers, your goals, and your blind spots. It's completely free, and it could be the most valuable 5 to 20 minutes you spend on your retirement planning this year. The link is right below. Please go ahead and click it, and I'll record your personalized video. Don't leave your retirement to chance. Get the clarity you need to make informed decisions. And in the meantime, I'll see you out there.